watch SMART24 TV, where we drive your business. It's a Tuesday, and of course, this is financial markets. We definitely get to look at the global markets. We look at the regional as well as the local financial markets here in Uganda, giving you an opportunity and an insight into some of the investment opportunity, the vast investment opportunities that are there in the financial markets world, globally and locally. Now, of course, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, the #1 private stock exchange. And now Altex is giving you a chance to buy bonds and treasury bonds in particular for different, interests, and of course, different periods of maturity across East Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania, and in Uganda. And most interestingly, they have made it so easy and accessible that now with the USSD code, you can simply get to dial *292# and straight away you will be getting into the bond market. You will be able to buy or even sell. And remember, this is a secondary market a kind of activity that we are seeing on Altex East Africa. Now, today in these inflationary periods and a lot of uncertainty around many investments, real estate, even the stock markets, treasury bonds and debt instruments tend to be the safe haven at the moment. And so Altex is giving you this chance to be able to get to access some of these. And now you can even transact money off of your mobile wallet or your mobile money, MTN Momo in particular, onto Altex. And to do this, you simply still dial *292# and follow the prompts. There are even options for you to get to learn more about their products and get to know how you can buy more or even sell more, and how you can keep on transacting on the Altex stock exchange. And definitely they will give you liquidity as well at a very good interest rate on their different maturity periods of the different bonds there at Altex East Africa. Markets open at exactly 15 minutes past the hour of 8 a.m. and close at 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. Altex East Africa doing something new. Now let's divulge into straight the markets here. Let's start with the United States. Now, U.S. stocks have experienced a rally once more. Now, on Monday in particular, the U.S. stocks edged a bit higher as Wall Street waited for another round of earnings from the retail sector. Now, the S&P 500, or famously called the Standard & Poor's index, which is one of the biggest indexes. Actually, some people call it the benchmark index for the U.S. stock market there. The U.S. S&P 500 index inched up higher, about 0.3% during their midday trading. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is a tracker of the top 30 companies, including Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Google, and the like, also ticked up by 0.5% on the U.S. stock market. The technology-heavy NASDAQ Composite Index inched up about 0.2% on the U.S. market as well. Now, U.S. stock markets, if you remember, last Friday ended the week with their biggest gains for the month. And with lighter inflation data sparking hopes amongst investors that a monetary policy shift could be near. Of course, we saw the S&P 500 rise by over 6% and the NASDAQ around 8% for the week. The Treasury yields, however, also advanced as well. And we're seeing that the dollar held a very firm position following the weekend comments from the Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller, who said that the central bank still has a way to go. And of course, he said that this isn't the end this is of course not ending in the next meeting or two, according to Mr. Christopher there. The comments echoed the hawkish remarks from of course, at the end of this month, at the end of last month, from the Federal Reserve Bank Chairman, Mr. Jerome Powell, and reinforcement from other colleagues who also reaffirmed that interest rate increases were far from over. Now, some of the individual stocks that were trending on Monday include the Tyson Foods, which is a beef and poultry producer that reported quarterly earnings that missed expectations, while the sales rose above the forecast as high inflationary environment weigh on margins. The Oatly Group AB, which is a Swedish maker of oat-based dairy products, posted a wider than expected third quarter loss and revenue that fell short of the estimates, of course, of the financial analysts as well. The AMC Entertainment Holdings, and according to the AMC chief executive, that is Adam Aaron, he said on Thursday to one of the interviews he had on TV that the company will still accept cryptocurrencies despite the collapse of the FTX, and the stock has fallen over 72% this year. Now, the GameStop Corporation, fellow meme stock GameStop, said that it is winding down to its partnership with FTX. The retailer announced on Friday that it would be providing full refunds to impacted customers, and the stocks were up by 2% on Monday. Amazon, on the other hand, plans to lay off close to 10,000 employees in what would be the largest reduction in the company's history, according to reports. The mass layoffs could begin as soon as this week, and this will focus on Amazon's devices organizations. We're looking at also the retail division and the human resources department. The move also follows Facebook parent Meta and Twitter and other tech companies that have laid off thousands of employees this month. Amazon stock was down 1%. That is on Monday. Walmart and Target and also the Home Depot are among the major companies set to unveil their third quarter financials this week as well. So our eyes will be also on Walmart, Target, and Depot there. Data from FactSet Research shows on Friday we had about 9% of companies in the S&P 500 have reported their third quarter earnings, with 69% reporting actual earnings per share above the mean estimate, below the 5 average of 77. That bit. Also on the Wall Street's plate is another round of economics data, of course, coming up this week, including the monthly retail sales report out on Wednesday, and economists surveyed by Bloomberg show that the forecast headline is about 1% increase for October, after spending was unexpectedly flat in September as consumers pulled back a bit on the big ticket items amid high inflation and the climbing interest rates. Remember, the interest rates in the United States were raised by over 75 basis points just about a week and a half ago, and that was declared by the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, Mr. Jerome Powell, and confirmed by the governor there of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States, Christopher Waller, that now the ranges of of about 3.75 to 4% are the new interest rates ranges. Now, while this year, of course in 2023 and basis case price target of about 3,900, a rough inline in the market is currently trading, and it won't be a smooth ride. Of course, inflation is still in place, though of course after last week's data, it showed that the rate of inflation has slightly gone down. That rate of increase has slightly gone down, and there is some hope for the US economy. And currently, the data showed that we have about 7.7% of consumer price index, and the core basis value of about 6% as well. So we still have a long way to go, because the goal of the central bank in the United States is at most 2%. And so we are still not yet seeing a halt in the increase in the central bank rate very soon as of now, right now. And of course, this is not, of course, only in the US market, but also markets all over the world are facing almost exactly the same kind of challenge here on the central bank, and also the inflation data coming in from different parts of the world. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, from the US. But also, just to wind it up here, we had the Dow Jones end yesterday with 33,877 US dollars, and the S&P 500 at 4,001.86 points there, and the Nasdaq at 11,324 points. And the Nasdaq went up 0.01% last night, and the Dow Jones at 0.38%, and the S&P 500 at 0.22%. Remember, this is data that really changes, and by this morning, of course, things could have changed, but this is as per the trades yesterday and last night closing the US stock market. You can trade on the US market via different platforms, but of course you have to be careful, because we don't have a regulator here directly regulating the markets and how they how you can buy or sell, but at least what I know is that you can definitely be a participant in these markets. You don't have to go to the US. There are online traders and several other platforms that you can engage in, and see that you make a little earning from that market as well. Now, let's get back to Africa briefly, and also get to see what transpired on the around Africa. Of course, we've not had a very good time here in East Africa, particularly Uganda and Kenya. We don't have, markets are not looking very well. But of course, this is still providing opportunity. Like I said, you don't have to look at it as a disadvantage all the time, altogether. You must have a longer term vision. You must have a foresight, seeing and looking beyond the current challenges we are facing as a continent. And now, looking at the African yesterday, Ghana Stock Exchange gained on its own at about 0.05%, and that was about 1.1 that were added to. Now, in aggregate, we had about 15 companies participate in trading at the Ghana Stock Exchange, and the day ended with one gainer, namely Trust Bank of Gambia, with about 10% share appreciation, and as well MTN Ghana recording the highest volume of about 17,164 traded shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange. It was followed by EcoBank Transnational in terms of 1,106, and Bank of Gambia at about and 227 shares. Regarding the performance of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Composite Index. We had about 1.15 points added to the index and closing at 2,450.64 points, making a 1 week loss of 0.939% and a 4 week loss of about 0.4% and an overall year-to-date loss of 12.14%. You can see still in terms of 1 week, in terms of 1 month, the index on average is still on the losing side. And we are just seeing this gain probably as we see on the Monday trades, the results of Monday trades. Now let's move on to another stock exchange here. Johannesburg declined in performance. Benchmark index evidenced this after it lost about 100 points on the J200. And regarding the participation, we had about companies participate in, and about 49 losers on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Iotech Solutions led the gainers with about a gain of 38.75, and that was in a share price closing at 3.33 Rand, rather the South African rand. And we're looking at also Rand Gold Exploration Company at a 22.8% gain as well. Also gained about 20% on the closing day there of the first day of trading this week. And as well, when you look at that is Brimstone Cooperative, he gained about 9.7% on the South African market. On the losing side, however, we had Transpaco, who came out with an end-of-day price depreciation of 23.6% at about 21.20 South African rand closing price, and Delta Property Fund at about 10.71% of the pricing there for Delta Property Fund. Quantum Foods Holdings also lost about 7.56%. Now, on average or aggregate, we are looking at the benchmark index here in South Africa, which is the J203. And remember, indexes give us the aggregate performance, and so we can just look at them and get to know what really took place in the South African market. And looking at the J203, it lost about 160.33 points in the single day of trading. And this was a 0.22% loss on the index, which closed at 72,822.47 points. And when you look at the 1 week performance, the market, however, is still on a gain of about 4.87%. and a 4-week gain as well of 10.02%. We are looking at the South African market here, but an overall year-to-date loss of 1.2% has been still registered on the South African market. Regarding the performance here in terms of volumes, we had the highest volume of close to 18.6 million shares that were transacted on the exchange, and it was followed by Fast Rand at 14.3 million shares on the market, and Growthpoint Properties at 11 million. Well, regarding this data, there was a decline, however, of 24% in the volume, and when you look at the turnover, it declined about 40%. So the turnover wasn't that good comparing with the previous day of trading, and the deal declined by 30%. However, the market capitalization of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is still currently at 20 trillion rand at the moment. And yesterday, we had about, 21 billion rand that was transacted in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just rolling through the continent, getting to see what happened on the different stock exchanges around East Africa, rather around Africa, as we try to make an understanding of the entire markets here in the continent. Now, Nairobi Stock Exchange was one of the other exchanges that didn't perform as much expected, of course, given the trading days before. And we're looking at about 47 companies participating in trading out of the 65 listed companies. And the day ended with about 16 gainers and 19 losers on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. EGADS led the gainers at an 8.64% share price appreciation, closing at 11.95 Kenyan shillings per share. It was followed closely by Olympia Capital Holdings, who had about 7.89%. That was gained on this particular company. Olympia Capital Holdings has been on and off the gaining side, sometimes gaining hugely and sometimes losing. And this is really what you see with small cap or growing companies. They give you really an opportunity to grow very quickly, but they also come with their own risks because they are quite volatile in terms of pricing. And so you must really be careful as an investor, as you're getting into the market, looking at the small caps. You must be careful. You don't have to be very excited by, single day gains or 1 month gains. Things could really turn around and, it could be the opposite the next day. So that's one of the companies is Olympia Capital Holdings. Really, it's on the gaining side and usually on the top end. And then when it's on the losing side, it's also at the bottom end. So that volatility usually is common with the small capitalization companies and small and growing enterprises as well. The Nairobi Stock Exchange, we had Safaricom recording the biggest volume at about 2.13 million shares that were traded on the market, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company at about 850,400 shares that were transacted. Regarding the performance in terms of volume and turnover, there was a 50% decline in the volume and about 54% decline in the turnover. However, the number of deals went up by over 10%. That is it from Nairobi Stock Exchange. We're going to look at a deeper analysis of this market later on as we wind up the market. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick breather, and when we return, we come to the Uganda Stock Exchange, and as well as looking at a summary of the trades on the East African platform. But also in my hands, I remember I told you we have to finish this bulletin. We have a copy online, and you can get to have a look at the quarterly performances from the different financial markets. You're looking at the bond market, you're looking at the capital markets, and so many others. And so get yourself a copy of the Capital Markets Authority quarterly bulletin. And now this is, of course, the edition for the third quarter 2022. And we will still look at something as well from this bulletin and look at what we should expect. Stay with us. We will be right back. You're watching SMART24 TV, and we drive business.